The most dangerous kind of arrogance is the kind that feels public. The kind that performs cruelty like it's leadership, because the room has rewarded it for so long that it starts to sound like truth. That's what happened at Hargrove Systems on a Monday morning when the CEO decided to turn a black janitor into a lesson in standards in front of the entire executive floor. He humiliated him in the corridor like it was a corporate training video, with assistants watching and managers pretending not to see. The CEO thought he was proving authority. What he was really proving was how small a man becomes when he thinks power is permission. And he would have gotten away with it too, if the board hadn't chosen that exact day to arrive unannounced, and if the janitor's name hadn't been the one they came to hear. Leon Davis had been invisible for most of his adult life, not because he lacked presence, but because invisibility was assigned to him the moment people saw the uniform. He was 46, black, tall, with a quiet dignity that made him look older than his age in the way responsibility does. He worked nights sometimes, mornings other times, depending on where the building needed him. He moved through offices like a shadow with purpose, emptying bins, polishing glass, fixing what other people didn't notice until it was dirty enough to complain about. He didn't linger. He didn't interrupt. He didn't make himself a problem. Because in corporate towers, the safest way for a black man in a service role to survive was to be both flawless and forgettable. Leon knew that. He also knew something else. He had not always been a janitor. Not by lack of ability, by lack of permission. Years earlier, Leon had been an operations supervisor at a manufacturing plant. He'd been the guy who could read a production schedule like a language, who could see bottlenecks before they happened, who could get stubborn machines running again with nothing but a screwdriver and common sense. When the plant shut down, he lost everything slowly. First the job, then the savings, then the credit score, then the comfort of believing hard work always led somewhere. He tried to pivot, tried to get certifications, tried to keep dignity while the world kept asking him to prove he deserved it. Eventually, he took the job with a facilities contractor because his daughter needed braces, and the rent didn't care about his resume. He told himself it was temporary. Temporary turned into years. Still, Leon never stopped being the kind of man who noticed systems. Buildings, like businesses, had rhythms. People did too, and Hargrove Systems had a rhythm Leon understood better than the people in suits. It ran on appearances and pressure and the quiet fear of being replaceable. Hargrove Systems was a mid-sized tech company that had recently gotten very big attention. They built enterprise software for logistics and efficiency, the kind of company that liked to put words like innovation and inclusion on banners, while quietly building a culture that punished anyone who didn't match the executive template. The CEO, Bradley Hargrove, was the founder's son. Not the founder, the inheritor. Early 40s, white, sharp haircut, sharper voice. He wore confidence like a tailored jacket and treated inconvenience like insult. He loved the sound of his own certainty. People said he was demanding. What they meant was, he was cruel in a way that was protected by results. The company's stock had been shaky the past quarter. Some analysts were whispering about missed targets and inflated projections. Bradley felt it. He didn't show fear directly. Men like him rarely did. He showed it as anger. He snapped at assistants. He scheduled emergency meetings for accountability. He walked the executive floor like a storm, looking for something to strike. That Monday morning, Leon arrived early. The executive floor hosted a quarterly leadership summit that day. Department heads, directors, VPs. Catering was being set up. A big screen in the main conference room displayed a polished slide deck with the company logo and a theme in bold letters, "Excellence starts here." Leon's job was to make sure the floor looked perfect. He vacuumed the hallway carpet until the fibers stood in clean lines. He wiped fingerprints off glass doors until they disappeared. He checked the restrooms twice. Then he saw it. A small mess near the elevator bank. A smear of coffee on the carpet. A dropped pastry wrapper. Crumbs. It wasn't huge, but on a day like today, huge didn't matter. Visibility did. Leon knelt down and started to clean it, working carefully with a stain remover and a cloth. His cart sat beside him, neatly organized. He was halfway through lifting the stain when the elevator doors opened and Bradley Hargrove walked out with two executives behind him. Bradley's shoes stopped inches from Leon's hand. Leon didn't look up right away because he'd learned that sudden eye contact could be read as disrespect. He shifted slightly to make space. "Morning," Leon said softly, polite. Bradley didn't return the greeting. He looked down at Leon like Leon was part of the mess. "What is this?" Bradley demanded, voice loud in the corridor. Leon glanced at the stain. "Coffee spill," he said calmly. "I'm cleaning it now." Bradley's eyes narrowed. "Why is it here at all?" Leon hesitated. "Someone dropped it, sir. Bradley cut him off. "Don't sir me like we're friends," he snapped. The two executives behind him shifted uncomfortably. One glanced away. The other pretended to check his phone. Leon kept his face neutral. "I'm sorry," Leon said. "It'll be gone in a minute." Bradley's mouth twisted. "It should have never been here," he said, louder now, turning slightly so his voice carried down the hallway where people were arriving for the summit. "This is the problem with this place. People don't take pride in basic standards." Leon's chest tightened. He could feel eyes turning. Assistants near the conference room paused. A director walking by slowed as if drawn by the sound of power being exercised. Bradley looked around, feeding on the attention. "You," Bradley said, pointing down at Leon as if Leon was a warning sign, "are paid to prevent this." Leon's throat tightened. "I'm paid to clean and maintain, sir," he said quietly. Bradley's face hardened. "No," he said, "you're paid to do your job, and clearly you're not doing it." Leon felt the familiar heat of humiliation rise, but he held it down. He didn't argue. Arguing would give Bradley a reason to escalate. "I am doing it," Leon said calmly, gesturing to the stain remover. "Right now." Bradley laughed. Sharp, short, mean. "Right now," he repeated. "Always right now, never before." His voice grew louder. "Let me tell you something. This company is falling apart because people at every level think good enough is acceptable." He pointed at the crumbs. Good enough cleaning, good enough reporting, good enough product testing, and then everyone acts surprised when we miss targets. Leon's jaw tightened. He wasn't responsible for missed targets. He wasn't responsible for stock price. He was responsible for a spill someone else made. And Bradley was turning him into a scapegoat because it was easier than facing the real mess upstairs. "Stand up," Bradley ordered. Leon blinked. "Excuse me?" Bradley's eyes flashed. "Stand. Up." Leon rose slowly, hands still holding the cloth. He kept his posture respectful. Now he was eye level with Bradley, and Bradley didn't like it. Bradley took a step closer, invading space. "What's your name?" he demanded. Leon hesitated, then answered. "Leon Davis." Bradley smirked, like the name didn't matter. "Leon," he said loudly, "do you know how many people would kill for a job in this building?" Leon swallowed. "Yes, sir." Bradley leaned in. "Then act like it," he snapped. "Because if I see this kind of sloppiness again, you're gone. Do you understand?" The hallway had gone quiet. Not fully silent. There was still distant chatter. But around them, people were listening. Some looked uncomfortable. None intervened. Leon's hands clenched around the cloth. He forced himself to breathe. "I understand," he said, voice steady. Bradley nodded, satisfied, like he'd just delivered a motivational speech. He turned to the executives behind him. "This is why accountability matters," he said, waving a hand toward Leon like Leon was a chart. "Standards start at the bottom." That phrase, "at the bottom," hung in the air like poison. Leon felt it lodge in his chest. He wanted to say, "I am not the bottom. I am a man." But he didn't. He simply lowered his gaze and knelt back down to finish cleaning. Bradley walked away, satisfied, leaving Leon on the floor like a prop he'd used and discarded. Leon worked with controlled movements, wiping the stain until it faded. But inside, something had shifted. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. He had spent years being invisible so people wouldn't target him. And still, when a powerful man needed someone to blame, invisibility didn't protect him. It just made him easier to use. As Leon finished, he heard soft footsteps behind him. A young black woman in a blazer, maybe HR, maybe admin, paused near his cart. Her expression was tight with anger and sympathy. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Leon didn't look up. "Don't be," he said quietly. "You didn't do it." She hesitated. "That was wrong," she said, voice trembling. Leon nodded once. "I know," he replied. Then she walked away, and Leon returned his cloth to the cart, hands steady. 10 minutes later, the executive floor filled with leaders gathering for the summit. People chatted, laughed too loudly, adjusted ties. Bradley took his place near the main conference room, performing confidence, greeting people with crisp handshakes. The big screen displayed revenue projections. The mood was forced optimism. But then something happened that no one expected. The elevators opened again, and this time it wasn't staff or executives stepping out. It was the board. Not scheduled, not announced. 3 men and 2 women, all dressed in the quiet, expensive way of people who didn't need to posture. They moved with purpose. Behind them walked the company's general counsel, looking tense. Conversations stopped. Bradley's face lit up with surprise and sudden charm. He stepped forward quickly. "Well, this is a pleasant surprise," Bradley said, voice warm. "I didn't know you were coming in today." The chair of the board, Judith Klein, a white woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and zero patience for performance, didn't smile. "We decided to," she said simply. Bradley's smile held, but his eyes flickered. "Of course," he said. "Welcome." Judith's gaze swept the hallway, taking in the environment, the people, the staff. Then she said, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "We're looking for Leon Davis." The hallway froze. Bradley blinked. "I'm sorry?" he said, still smiling, but now the smile looked strained. Judith repeated, "Leon Davis." One of the board members, a man with silver hair and a military posture, added, "He should be on this floor. Facilities." Bradley's face shifted. Confusion cracked through his confidence. "Leon Davis," he repeated slowly. "Our janitor?" The word janitor came out like dismissal. Judith's eyes sharpened. "Facilities lead," she corrected. "Bring him." Bradley laughed lightly, trying to cover discomfort. "Of course," he said, then glanced around sharply like he expected someone else to handle it. An assistant hurried off down the hallway toward the supply closet where Leon was refilling sanitizer bottles. Leon heard the hurried footsteps and looked up. The assistant's eyes were wide. "Leon," she said quickly, "they need you in the hallway. The board is here." Leon paused, confused. "The board?" he repeated. "Yes," she whispered. "They asked for you by name." Leon felt a strange chill. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked out slowly, not rushing, not panicking. When he turned the corner, he saw the hallway full of executives and the board standing near the elevator. He saw Bradley Hargrove near the front, posture tight, face carefully controlled. Leon approached, pushing his cart aside, hands at his sides. Bradley's eyes flicked to him, and for a split second, something like fear passed through. Judith Klein stepped forward. Her face softened slightly, not into warmth, but into respect. "Mr. Davis," she said. Leon blinked. No one called him Mr. in this building unless they were trying to sell him something. "Yes, ma'am?" Judith nodded. "Thank you for coming," she said. Bradley stepped in quickly, voice forced jovial. "Leon," he said, "the board has a question for you." Leon looked at Bradley, then back at Judith. Judith ignored Bradley entirely. "Mr. Davis," she said, "we've been reviewing internal operational reports. We've also been reviewing employee feedback." Bradley's jaw tightened. Judith continued, "Your name came up repeatedly." Leon's stomach tightened. He wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Bradley's voice cut in, sharp. "Leon is part of facilities," Bradley said quickly. "He keeps the floor clean. I'm sure this is some misunderstanding." Judith turned her head slightly and fixed Bradley with a look that made the room colder. "Bradley," she said calmly, "let me finish." Bradley's mouth closed. Judith looked back to Leon. "We've received multiple reports over the last year," she said, "that Leon Davis has prevented operational disruptions by noticing issues others missed." Leon's eyes widened slightly. Judith went on, "He flagged a server room overheating problem last summer that could have shut down our internal systems during a product rollout." One executive shifted, remembering. Judith continued, "He identified repeated security badge failures at the back entrance and documented them, preventing an unauthorized access incident." Another board member nodded, and, Judith said, he submitted a process improvement proposal through the internal portal, one that reduced supply waste and saved this company nearly $200,000 annually. Murmurs rippled through the hallway. Bradley's face tightened. Leon stood still, stunned. He had submitted those reports, yes, quietly, through channels that rarely responded, because he had noticed inefficiencies and fixed them the way he fixed everything, methodically, without needing credit. Most of the time, he assumed no one read them. Judith's eyes held Leon's. "Mr. Davis," she said, "do you know why we asked for you today?" Leon swallowed. "No, ma'am," he admitted. Judith nodded once. "Because this company has a leadership problem," she said, voice calm but sharp, "and we're tired of hearing about it from glossy decks and defensive emails. We wanted to hear from someone who actually sees how this place runs." Bradley's face went rigid. Executives stared. Leon's pulse hammered. Judith continued, "We're conducting a governance review, and we're also launching an internal integrity and operations council to report directly to the board." She paused. "We want you on it." The air shifted. Bradley blinked like he'd been slapped. "What?" he blurted before he could stop himself. Judith didn't look at him. She looked at Leon. "Your job title does not define your intelligence," she said. "Your position does not define your value. Your pattern of action defines your value. And your pattern is rare." Leon's throat tightened. He felt heat behind his eyes and forced it down. He was a grown man, but being seen after years of being overlooked does something to you. It shakes loose emotions you didn't know were still trapped. Bradley found his voice again, too loud, too fast. "Judith, with respect," he said, "this is absurd. He's facilities. He's not qualified." Judith turned fully to Bradley. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Bradley," she said, "you humiliated him in this hallway less than an hour ago." The room went dead silent. Bradley's face drained of color. Judith continued, "We have security footage, we have witnesses, and we have enough complaints about your conduct that you should be grateful we're handling this privately." Bradley's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Judith looked at Leon again. "Mr. Davis," she said, "I'm sorry for the disrespect you experienced today. And I'm sorry it took this long for the company to recognize what you've been doing." Leon's voice came out low. "Thank you," he said. Judith nodded. One of the board members, a man named Alan Pierce, stepped forward. "Leon," he said, friendly but serious, "we've been looking for someone with operational integrity. Someone who understands systems, not just slides." He nodded toward the conference room. That's you. Leon looked down briefly, then up. I just do my job, he said. Judith's eyes stayed sharp. No, she said. You do more than your job. You do what leaders are supposed to do. You notice. You document. You prevent harm. You care about standards. Real standards, not performative ones. Bradley's jaw clenched. The word standards now sounded different. Leon felt something in his chest loosen. Not because he wanted Bradley punished, because the narrative had shifted. For once, the man with the mop wasn't the bottom. He was the truth. Judith turned slightly and addressed the executives watching. Let this be clear, she said. If anyone in this company believes dignity is optional depending on job title, you are not aligned with our values or our risk tolerance. Risk tolerance. That phrase made the executives swallow hard because it meant the board wasn't talking about feelings. It was talking about liability and governance and consequences. Judith looked back at Bradley. We'll meet in the boardroom in 15 minutes, she said. And Bradley, don't speak to Mr. Davis again without HR present. Bradley's face tightened like he might explode, but he nodded because he had no choice. The board began to move down the hallway. Executives scattered like people escaping a storm. Leon stood still, feeling the hallway empty around him, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes that had just watched the world flip. The young black woman from earlier, HR, returned. Eyes wide, a small smile of relief on her face. Leon, she whispered, are you okay? Leon exhaled slowly. I think so, he said. Bradley stood near the conference room entrance, rigid, jaw clenched, watching Leon like Leon had stolen something. Leon met his eyes briefly, not with smugness, with calm, the kind of calm that said, you don't own the room anymore. 15 minutes later, the board meeting started behind closed doors. Leon didn't go in yet. HR asked him to wait in a small office nearby. He sat in a chair, hands clasped, listening to muffled voices through the wall. His mind replayed the morning, Bradley's finger pointing, the word bottom, the humiliation. Then Judith's voice, we're looking for Leon Davis. The contrast was almost surreal. An hour later, Judith came out with the general counsel and HR. Her expression was controlled. Mr. Davis, she said, we'd like to speak with you. Leon stood, heart pounding. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was heavy. Bradley sat at the far end, face tight, eyes fixed on the table. He didn't look up. Judith motioned Leon to a seat near the center, an intentional placement. Not the edge, not behind. Center. Judith spoke plainly. Leon, we've placed Bradley on administrative leave pending investigation, she said. Leon's breath caught. Judith continued, effective immediately, you will transition from facilities contractor to direct employee with a salary adjustment and expanded role. Leon blinked. Ma'am, Judith held up a hand. You've earned it, she said, and you'll be protected. Alan Pierce leaned forward. We want you to help us rebuild culture and operational accountability, he said, not as a symbol, as a leader. Leon swallowed, voice thick. I don't have an MBA, he said quietly. Bradley's head twitched, like he wanted to laugh. Judith's eyes cut toward Bradley, and Bradley went still. Judith turned back to Leon. We're not hiring degrees, she said. We're hiring judgment. We're hiring integrity. We're hiring the ability to see what others ignore. Leon nodded slowly, absorbing. HR slid a folder toward him. Paperwork, benefits, role outline. Leon looked down at it like it might disappear if he blinked too hard. Then he looked up at Judith. Thank you, he said. Judith nodded. One more thing, she said. If you want to file a formal complaint about this morning, we will support it. Leon glanced at Bradley. Bradley still wouldn't look up. Leon felt anger, yes. But he also felt something else. Choice. For once, he had choice. Leon took a slow breath. I want it documented, he said. Not for revenge, for accountability. Judith nodded. It will be, she promised. Leon signed the first page with a hand that shook slightly. Not because he was afraid, because being seen after being shamed is a kind of shock. When Leon left the boardroom, he walked past the hallway where the coffee stain had been. The carpet was clean now. Perfect. But Leon knew the real mess hadn't been the coffee. The real mess had been a culture that let a CEO treat a black worker like an object to make a point. And for once, that mess was being addressed. Later that afternoon, Leon returned to the facilities closet to collect his things. Tyler, a young white manager who had watched the humiliation earlier and said nothing, stood awkwardly near the door. Leon, Tyler began, voice uncertain, I'm sorry I didn't say anything. Leon looked at him calmly. Next time, Leon said, say something. Tyler nodded, ashamed. Leon walked out of the closet carrying his old contractor badge. At the front desk, HR handed him a new one, with his name printed clearly. Leon Davis, Operations and Integrity Counsel. The title felt strange, like a coat that didn't fit yet. But Leon understood something now. You grow into what you're finally allowed to wear. As he stepped into the elevator, he saw Bradley one last time across the lobby area, escorted by HR and security, face tight with humiliation. Bradley's eyes flicked up and met Leon's. For a second, Bradley looked like he wanted to speak. Then he looked away, because bullies only speak when they think they're safe. The elevator doors closed, and Leon let out a slow breath. He thought about his daughter, about how he'd tell her tonight that her father had been disrespected and then respected, not because he changed, but because someone powerful finally looked down the hallway and saw the truth. He thought about all the people in uniforms who never get their names said out loud in rooms where decisions happen. He promised himself quietly, if he was going to sit at that table now, he would pull other names into the light too. Because the best ending isn't just one man rising. It's the system learning it can't keep stepping on the same people without being held accountable. And if you ever feel invisible in a place that benefits from your labor, remember Leon Davis. Sometimes the board doesn't just see the CEO. Sometimes, when the truth gets loud enough, they ask for the person who's been holding the place together all along.